Calling the meeting to order. The only vote that was taken was to adjourn executive session. No other further votes were taken. We will now do the Pledge of Allegiance. Right, next item, please.
Next item is the consent agenda.
On the consent agenda, I'll make a motion to remove item 7, RFP for Medicaid billing service. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All that say aye?
Aye.
Is there a nay? The motion passes. Are there any other motions, or are there any other items under the consent agenda that a member would like to either remove there for further discussion? If not, I'll also entertain a motion to approve. But first, I'll entertain a motion to remove any item on there.
So going forward, is it possible that if we have RFPs, that we do not put them in the consent agenda? Because if there is discussion, I think it's better that we have them on a different line item than, that's just my opinion. That's what I'm asking for. Just so that make sure everyone, if they have a question to be asked, we can do it. Consent agenda has always been in the past. We can decide what we want to do, but it's always been in the past that it's stuff that we all have read ahead of time, and there have been no questions. And I just think that RFPs, especially the one that's in there today, is a big one, and that's how I feel. I did bring that up to the chair prior to this meeting.
So I'll entertain a motion to remove item 6 for further discussion and a vote, moving that over to item section action items. Is there a motion for that?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All that say aye?
Aye.
Aye. All that say nay? The motion passes. We'll move item 6 to action items. Are there any other motions for the consent agenda prior to approval?
Again,
Yes.
Sorry. The only other thing that I want to do is, when it comes to the school committee bylaws that I think we just passed for second read, so that would go into effect, I really would like to try to add either in announcements or public comment again, because right now our public comment is so far up there that it's not even until our discussions are way over.
Mm-hmm.
I know that our public comments are not meant for us to have an open debate about things, but it is nice to hear, especially educational comments from parents who attend these meetings or from community members. If we're discussing education, I really would like to hear what they have to say after our presentation, especially if Mrs. Riley has a presentation about education, and then that doesn't give anyone really an opportunity to discuss anything with us. And from somebody who used to come up to that podium quite a lot, that would, as a constituent, it doesn't flow well with me.
So is that a change then that
Well,
you propose to that to the bylaws then, because that's just on, that can be moved under the agenda. It's just recommended, it's
Right,
not something
that's-
that would be moved, so I'm not
Right.
sure if you're, that's why I want
I
clarification.
don't mean proposed to move it, I just think
Okay.
maybe,
Just for
especially-
future agendas?
Yeah, we
Okay.
should add an extra discussion, public comment, or somehow put it in there, or allow for, I'm not sure what the right answer is, just, especially when it comes to educational.
So what we could do,
Like tonight, for example, the dress code I have on here for discussion, and we wouldn't, no one would really be able to come up and discuss afterwards. They would have to do it beforehand, and I would like to hear feedback of what people think of what I had to say. So it's just an example.
Yeah, just to clarify here, you're talking about the placement of public comments on the agenda being until the end, towards the end of the agenda, so that public participants have an opportunity to make comment once the school committee has gone through the majority of the agenda, including discussion items.
Correct. From before, we used to do it because we didn't want people sticking around, and we didn't want them to have to wait to come up to do their public comment. But in my opinion, if you really want your public comment to be heard, you're gonna stick around. That's just how I feel.
Is there a way we could do, kind of like public comment 1 towards the beginning of the meeting and like a public comment 2 towards the end, but for each of them, you're allowed to speak on both agenda and non-agenda items? I think that would kind of be a reasonable solution to consider.
No, definitely. I think having that option at the end would definitely be nice. The only reason why I had that moved up is because I think it was like 90% of the time last year, it was people just, we would, do the motions to have them move up because we knew what item they wanted to talk on, and it was an item all the way up at the top and not at the end. So that was my, I wanted to be cognizant of those people. But we definitely have that discretion, even if we do move the public comment at the end, to still, if we are aware of which item they're here to speak on, we can definitely at least give them the option to, come up and speak on a specific item if it would help in their situation if they can't stay here till the end.
And also, so folks are aware, according to this policy, the order of business on page 6 is as followed unless agreed by a majority of the school committee. And therefore, the majority of the school committee have the power to move around, add, or remove pieces of this, of the order of the agenda. Also, the part about public comment doesn't seem very limiting at all. Declaring that comments by the public that pertain to East Providence School District issues on the meeting's agenda or not will be heard. Made during public comment shall be limited to 5 minutes per individual. No comments on personal issues, sensitive information regarding students, or confidential matters shall be permitted. So it seems like it is a little open, it's open-ended enough to make change as needed. Right.
Yeah. And open-ended because that was also an issue that not an issue, but that would be like a difficult thing to have to clarify, and it would be uncomfortable to clarify to constituents, to like tell them, oh, that was an agenda item, or it was. So like getting rid of that, differential aspect of it, I think would clarify that to whoever was attending. That way we wouldn't have to explain to them, it's like, oh, this is an agenda item, it's not. So taking that away and giving us that flexibility, I think would help us as committee members up here to be able to hear voices, as well as any residents that also want to attend as well. So. Any other comments on the bylaws? Is there any other motions in regards to this before approval, before I ask for that?
No, I'm good.
All right.
Think-
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, again, not including items 6 or 7.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All that say aye.
Aye.
All that say nay. Consent agenda passes. Next item, please.
Next item is public comments.
Next item, please.
Next item is PTO, PTA, EPLAC reports.
We have the report, the last school committee meeting, so we will move on to the next item, please.
Next item is superintendent's report. Dr. Ferrand.
Good evening. I was asked to provide an update on some of our CTC programs. So we have a new program that's been being implemented this year in our fashion design program. It is a new CTC pathway for the 23-24 school year. It was previously offered as an art department elective, and now it will be a CTC program. We'll be offering beginner, intermediate, and advanced courses, and then work-based learning experience. They have the Townie Boutique where you can bring your own clothing to be repaired. So I had some clothing hemmed there, and they did a great job. So we will be submitting an application for full program approval to ride this school year. Automotive program continues to expand. They have many partners, but this year we have opened our partnership up with MIT Transmissions. They came in, they did some work with the students, and they actually are offering a full-day seminar at the Newport Car Museum for our students. And we also have partnered with Anderson Motors, who brought an electric bus to the shop and provided training on electric vehicle maintenance and repair. And they have offered summer employment to 3 of the 11th graders with an option to continue to co-op into the school year if they choose. So definitely expanding the possibilities for our students in automotive. Culinary, I am happy to report we have submitted the MOU for the food truck, and we are first in line, so it is already in the shop. They are working on it being outfitted with all of the kitchen equipment, and then the design will take place, and we're hoping that we can take delivery of it in early summer. And the theme of the truck and the menu has been a project for all of the students most of the second semester, and it will be supported by students in the auto and electrical program and as well as graphics. So students will help design the images for the exterior wrap of the truck, and our debut will be in the fall at the ride, at one of the ride events. I believe it's it'll be a water fire event, the teacher event, and then you'll hopefully be seeing the food truck around the city in the fall. So we're very excited about that. Health Occupations has also expanded their co-op opportunities. They had 12 of our nursing students have gone to Rhode Island Hospital, which is a new partnership for us. There are 12th grade pre-nursing students. They completed their 40-hour clinical experience at the hospital. They were placed for about 5 hours per day over 9 school days between November and February. It's part of the requirements for a CNA certificate. And I had updated the committee that 12 students, took the April with 11 out of the 12 earning a passing score, and are scheduled to take the hands-on skill exam during the week of 5/1. So we expect that the 2023 commencement will be the first time in the history of the program that we'll have a cohort of students cross the stage as certified nursing assistants. So it's been a great experience with them going into the hospital and being able to see the different types of careers that are available at the hospital. And finally, our dental program embarked on a partnership with the Rhode Island Department of Health. They brought in the Health Resources and Services Administration The grant was geared towards creating a dental assisting pipeline to meet labor shortages in the field. The main focus was to increase recruiting into the dental assisting program. For example, this spring, the grant funded a dental assisting after-school program for EP middle school students. 7th and 8th graders from Martin and Riverside were transported to the high school from 2:30 to 4:15 on 4 Tuesdays to work with our instructor and her student volunteers on fun, hands-on lessons to get a taste of what the program is like. So I am also happy to report that all of our programs are full. We had close to 450 applicants for all of our programs. I believe that we had 3 programs that were open to out-of-district students that were not full with East Providence students. So I believe we accepted 24 out-of-district students out of probably 150 that applied for the program. So any student that applied from East Providence was accepted first. And finally, I don't know if everyone saw, but the Barrington Times ran an article last week about career and technical education movement in Rhode Island. Talked about best practices and CTE programs, elements such as student choice, 21st century skills, hands-on learning, and work-based learning are all core practices in CTE, which schools are working hard to bring to all students. It's becoming more and more widely recognized among employers and educators that learning in this type of active environment will engage students and prepare them for college or career. In the article, East Providence High School was recognized as a leader in the state in career and technical education. So it was if you didn't get to see it, I'll send it to you. It was a really nice article.
Thank you.
That highlighted our CTC programs also.
If I may, I know, Mr. Brandel, you had asked for that item, so I'm not sure if you had any follow-up questions. I open the floor to you.
Yeah, I actually decided to ask for that item after reading that article, specifically because of how positive it was, and I kind of just wanted the entire public to be able to hear about all of that very positive information. So you answered every question that I have, but thank you.
Thank you to Mr. Hanlon for providing that update for us.
Thank you. And the next item on here, I'll also will let you please make a little presentation on the instructional coaching positions, and from there, let us know, and I'll open the floor to questions or comments afterwards from the members. Thank you.
I'm coming to the committee to request approval for creating instructional coaching positions. So these positions would focus on teaching practices, they would support curriculum work, they would support new teachers, which we expect to have quite a few new teachers in the district next year. They would also focus on social emotional learning, data-driven instruction, support intervention, and MTSS, provide professional development both after school and during the summer, as well as during CPT time, which is scheduled into the school day, and really provide support to teachers and principals throughout the day, whether it's in classrooms, which would be where we would see our coaches working with teachers, at the data meetings that we do. So really, the focus would be on just comprehensive coaching. We currently have some coaching positions in the district. They're really more subject specific, and they're really more focused on curriculum and helping to roll out the curriculum. At this point, next year we will not be rolling out any new curriculum, so we feel like there needs to be a shift really to looking at instructional practice and supporting instructional practices in the classroom. So that's the reason that we're looking to add these coaching positions. So I did share a job description as to what we would be looking for in an instructional coach. As I said, we do have some coaching positions right now. We do feel as if there are some positions that are already in the budget, grant funded, that we would be looking to shift to a new role. So new requirements.
Thank you. So I definitely recognize that there is definitely a need for support for new teachers, especially when it's competitive out there with other schools, not just for salary and benefits, but also the environment that you're working in and making sure that you have the tools that you need and the support that you need and someone to really kind of guide you through the essential, first handful of years of your career as a teacher, especially if given that opportunity here in East Providence. It's a great way to make sure that, we kind of not only put that foundation for them to really achieve, their full success as, teachers in their career, but it also be, good to make sure that they're kind of being put in that training positions where they're in the best ability to serve also East Providence specifically. Whereas if you bring other teachers from other districts, which is not bad, of course, but you also have to, there's always that transition period if you're unlearning from other school districts as well. So having that for our teachers to not just have that support for their years, but also to make sure that they are more than able to, do their jobs to their best ability in their careers also, I think, really important. I do have some questions about what our plan is then for the current coaches that we have, like the number of coaches and how similar those current job descriptions are to this, because we weren't provided with that. So if I can pass it around, thank you.
So these would be new positions that need to be posted as such.
Okay.
How many coaches do we currently have? How many?
We have two, we have one math coach, we have one literacy coach, we have an SEL specialist, and those are really, I think, the only auxiliary positions that we really have supporting teachers in instruction.
And then would this this new job description is different than the current job description being used for the 3 coaches that we currently have?
It is.
And then would the 3 current coaches we have be signing this new job description as well?
So the positions have to be posted because they're new positions.
So the current coaches would have to apply for these new positions?
They could apply for these positions,
And how many new
correct.
positions are we planning on opening?
So it's going to be budget dependent.
And also grant dependent. I'm curious about the grant of the grant money that is paying for these positions. How long is the grant?
So Title II pays for a couple of the positions. That's yearly.
Okay.
It would need to be a rewrite into Title II because the positions have a different job description. So those occur every year. The other one, the SEL specialist, is also written into the IDEA grant, which is a yearly grant.
Technically, so these positions are year by year, based on if we get grant funding or not.
Correct.
Is that language in the job description?
So it's in the, you could see it in the literacy coach job description and in the math description, I believe. I think it says dependent on grant funding.
It has an asterisk.
In the new job description?
No.
I just didn't see it.
So it's in the other job description. We haven't finished the job description. This is a, this is a draft.
Oh, okay.
So we would add that in if they were written into the grant. And again, these positions need to be posted, so they're open to all members of the bargaining unit. Typically, if we were to eliminate positions in the district, those people get displaced. Mm-hmm. And they're eligible to they're eligible to apply for these, but they would be displaced into other positions. If we cut those positions, if we repurpose.
And then, do you think you can highlight, some of the difference in expectations from the older job descriptions to the new job descriptions?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is, right now, we used to have 2 literacy coaches, we used to have 2 math coaches. We have 1. They service 7 elementary schools. And they do a lot of curriculum rollout. They don't get to spend as much time in the classroom. They basically probably visit schools. With 7 schools, they're in either sometimes once a week, once probably just with a 7-school rotation, and they probably spend a little more time in the larger schools. So they're not able to get into those schools as often. So what I would hope is that these positions, the instructional coach takes on more responsibility, but less schools. So they can spend more time in schools, more time in classrooms, and provide more support to teachers, especially our beginning teachers. That's one of the things that I think people who have had coaches in the past that were our new teachers miss the most. That's the feedback we get the most, is that, because some of them only had coaching in their first year. Typically, we like to provide coaching in their first and second year if we can. But the people that had that first year of coaching, we definitely see a difference, and they really miss that support. So these coaches would be all-encompassing. They would help support curriculum. They would help support pedagogy in the classroom. They would support the SEL and data in the classroom, and they would be in schools more, and not content specific. So we would do a lot of work as a district with the coaches, to make sure that we are all on the same page with what we're providing at schools and how messages are communicated as far as, our expectations for curriculum and instructional minutes, our frameworks, those types of things.
And those are things that aren't currently happening, and that those aren't in the old job descriptions?
I don't know that they're not in the old job description. I think the way we're structuring coaching right now, they're not able to do those things because they're spread so thin.
I mean, honestly, I think that these are wonderful positions to have as just overall support in so many levels. In my mind, I'm thinking, how many teachers do we have currently?
500.
And how many classrooms? I mean,
I don't think I could say off the top of my head.
Sure, but we're talking 2 people are supporting.
At the elementary level. And so 1 person for SEL for the entire district, 2 elementary, 1 in math and 1 in ELA, and we don't have any coaches at the secondary level.
Right, we're talking at minimum 15 classrooms in 8 elementary schools, 120. So that's 60 classrooms for each coach to do in 100. That's 3 days each classroom. Yeah. These coaches are able to be in to support, 3 times over the year. That's extremely challenging. So I think that these positions should be really cultivated, and they're really important. So again, kind of going back to how many new positions, if we have 3 now, how many new positions are we looking to fill at this role?
So ideally, I would like 5 coaching positions. I don't know if we, looking at the budget yet, if that's realistic until we see, where we are. Are
the grants for the 23-24 school year already written and accepted?
No, but there's other programs that are in those grants that.
Yeah, I haven't seen I don't know those grants.
Yeah, so our CRP, our Title II is where these 2 positions currently lie. Yeah. But we have other programs and positions that are in those grants too that aren't going to change.
Have you or any part of our team identified any areas where there would be funding to be allocated towards 2 to 3 new positions?
So it would probably be the general budget, and we do, so again, everything is a priority, everything has to be prioritized. Sure. So, principals have come to the table with positions that they want, they're asking for, or we have some positions that we feel are necessary. We have some positions that we don't have any choice about creating. We have an MLL position at the high school and at one of the middle schools that we've had to create based on the number of students we have that are new to the country or that need service. So those are two positions that we've had to add already for next year that we don't have any choice about adding. We need them to service our students correctly. So it's looking at all those positions. So today is really about, asking for the approval to create these positions, and then looking for the funding in the budget to support as many as, we can.
Do we have an idea of what the salary would be for these new positions?
Yeah, so it's a teacher's salary. It's salary scale, so whatever step the teacher is on. And then all of the coaches work an extra 20 days, so they get a $7,000 stipend. So, we use them to do professional development after school. We use them to do summer professional development. We would also plan a summer institute for our coaches so that everybody gets the same professional development. So we would be looking at that. So all of those extra days figure into that stipend.
And would the minimum qualifications for these new positions be different from the other positions?
Yes.
I'm actually so this is the first time that I'm able to see the current job descriptions for the two coaching positions, and I'm just curious as to it's 3 different levels of qualifications. The new level being different than what we have currently. The numeracy coach is 7 years with the master's degree, I guess preferred, but the literacy coach is only 3 years teaching, and what we're going to be looking for with a master's preferred, and then what we're going to be looking for is a minimum of 5 years.
Yeah, so we actually have worked on the job description today also, as we start to build these out, which I'd be happy to share the new copy too of what we're, and again, this is a work in progress, really. It's approval of the position, but we have actually added to the qualifications. If you could see the yellow from there, we've actually added to the qualifications that we would be looking for in people that take these. If you could see the yellow, we've actually added.
I was looking at the paper, where I don't see
no.
yellow on my page.
We've actually revised some of the qualifications for the position. Again, it's a work in progress. The more we start to talk about what the expectations for these positions were, we want the best people in these positions because these are the people that are supporting our teachers. So we need our best people to be supporting our teachers in the classroom.
And so what we're asking, what you're looking for tonight is our approval of moving forward in finalizing this job description, or
No, so I need your approval to create instructional coaches. Because it's a new position to the district, we need the committee's approval to create instructional coaches. The job description is something that we're responsible for, and then even the number of coaches comes up as we move through the budget. So what we believe
would
we
this
can
also
afford.
go hand in hand with the elimination of the literacy and numeracy coaches, or would they still remain as active jobs in the district?
So we would be looking at those positions and looking at probably converting them to instructional, those positions, but we would be rewriting that grant for July 1st.
Submission on July 1st?
Yes.
So that's the reason for for having this come before us prior to going through the budget first then? Is
Yeah,
that
plus
why?
the budget really doesn't get the budget starts in November. So that's the problem with our budget cycle.
Oh, no, I meant before we start, a school committee go through the budget, because we would be going to start that, around the beginning of June?
Right, but
Ourselves.
it doesn't necessarily, the new budget and don't really get implemented till November 1. So if we wait.
So my concern is that the job description is still being worked on then, prior to our, if depending on how this goes, we would be approving it with a job description that's still being developed, with a budget that's still in the question, because not to our fault, really. We're still waiting to see what the state's gonna give us in June. And what we're projected to see is we're losing potentially about, was it 500, around 500,000?
So
So
right
that's-
now, the financial impact would be, there would, if we convert positions, there is no financial impact.
For all 5?
The way the job looks is different. No, I don't know that we can afford 5.
So
There's 3 right now that we could work with.
So, okay, so that's where I wanted clarification, is where then is there no financial impact?
Mr. Queenan asked how many I would like.
Yeah,
I would like 5. Right now, we have 3 different positions that could possibly look different.
Maybe nice to have. It'd be nice to have one in every school.
It would be very nice to
I mean, we're
have-
talking pie in the sky. It'd be nice to have a handful in the high school.
It would be.
And in our middle schools as well. So I mean, if we're talking about we're starting with 3 and we're looking for expansion into 5, down the line we're talking about expansion into every elementary school. I mean, this is steps towards progress, right? So it seems like it's a good thing. I kind of what I'm hearing from I don't know the appropriate way to Chairwoman Azanero, is that the concern, which I also have, is the approval of a job that has an incomplete job description and has an incomplete job description. So is that like something that would be like condition to final approval of the job description, or?
So the only thing that has changed in the job description that you have in front of you is the minimum qualifications. So if you'd like to table it, I can bring you this one that I have in front of me that we've continued to build out next meeting.
I'm not as concerned about a job description, because you're asking for a position.
Correct.
So we don't really approve job descriptions.
Correct.
We've never have.
Right.
It's not part of
Good
our
job. Good.
privy.
Only the
Okay,
job.
But because you're adding a position into the district,
Correct.
that be a financial burden
Yep.
is where we would get to have to a say in it. The current 3 people, in order for them to apply for this new position, we would have to pass this tonight. Because, am I correct on that? And I don't say pass this tonight, I mean, we would have to create this new job, because the superintendent has a different vision in what she would like those 3 people to do. If I'm wrong, please tell me I'm wrong, because I've been listening to you guys all in it. Ryan, last night we had an APLAC meeting, and just what you just said was exactly how I felt. You know, Rhode Island wants us to be like Mass in every sort of the way. They want all this new special education, great stuff to happen just like Massachusetts, but we're not funded like Massachusetts. They don't fund us like that. And I think that's where this group needs to come together and start banging on doors, because I think that's where our jobs are now. Like, that's what our job is, to let them know that this is what we want as a community and as a committee. We want to be able to put these instructional coaches into every elementary school, but financially, there's just no money. And, you know, Massachusetts is big on, okay, principal empowerment. Well, you did that, but you didn't give us the money to pay the principals to what their new jobs are. Now, you know, with special education, you want certain unrealistic goals. We don't have, 5 speech pathologists per elementary school or OTs, and so we can't finance it. But the one thing, when I started many years ago, we did have a new teacher coach, and it was eliminated. And I will tell you, I did hear a lot of feedback, the fact that newer teachers didn't feel as though that they had someone to go to or someone to have on their side. That being said, the amount of new teachers that we will be getting into the district in the next year, and then 370 at Top Step this year, over the next couple of years, worries me if they don't have a particular coach to be able to at least help them out. As a new teacher, when I went into teaching, I did not have that, and I only lasted a decade. So I think it's important. So that's just where I'm coming from, to say, I mean, you could get us the instructional coach job description, but it's not gonna matter. If it's a new position, it's a new position. Whether we approve the job description really doesn't matter. You could change it tomorrow. you know, based on who gets the job, based on who, you know, my issue is based on who interviews. If they're gonna be under your supervision, who would be doing the interviewing of this position? I'm assuming you or someone in your administration, not principals.
No, so it would be a district level team.
Yeah.
There'd be a principal,
Right.
at least a principal participant, maybe more, but it would be a district level interview.
So that's just my 2 cents on it. Again,
Our vision for what we need has changed. At one point, we had 7 coaches in the district. And now we're down to just really the 2 coaches. And, you know, all of the research points towards that's how you change instruction. And so, you know, since we're not rolling out new curriculum, we've just rolled out all our curriculum, we don't feel as if the focus needs to be on content anymore, which is specifically what those positions were designed for, was content. We feel like the coaches need to serve a bigger role in the district. It is. It's student-centered, it's classroom-centered, it's instruction. How do we engage students? How do we change our practice?
I'm curious, like, when we had 7 coaches, maybe like what day, just roughly, and what were the failures? What were the failures of that led to us going from 7 to 2? Is that a good thing to go from 7 to 2, or is that's a not a good thing to go backwards?
So
we want them back. So like,
So-
what led to
Yep.
us going from 7 to 2?
budget?
Budget. So those are the jobs that got
didn't
cut.
COVID do some of it?
And
COVID
yeah,
we
so
took
it was
away.
right, probably, I think we had 5 when COVID hit. And those coaches were instrumental.
But 5
in-
was less than 7, so we were
Right.
already on the decline before COVID.
We had cut 2 the year before COVID. We had cut 2 because of budget reasons. And then, I believe going into COVID, we had 5, I believe. And then those coaches were instrumental in helping our teachers convert to online learning and providing resources and how to instruct and like frameworks for it. They did an amazing job getting us like from one day to the next online for instruction. And then I believe it was that year they were cut, at the end of that year.
Remind me again how many curriculums we've rolled out within the last 2 years?
So we've rolled
I know
out,
we have math
yeah,
in
math,
the elementary.
English.
I know we also have a bunch of initiatives, and that's where
Yep.
my big concern
Writing.
was too, is that it's a lot on teachers' plates, especially if you don't have a point person that's disseminating that information from, and I assume it would be the director of teaching and learning that would be like the main point person.
Yep.
To be instructing and getting, all that data from the instructional coaches. Because that way it's, I think, a lot more easier also for kind of everyone to be on the same page, not just with, what's working in their school, but also to kind of share the information of what's working in one school with
Right.
another. And really using each other as, the best sources for, what works and doesn't.
Yep.
Without having to have an outside person to, give us that advice. And that's where my concern was, where I think having that additional help also for the existing teachers is a huge help, because there's a lot of initiatives.
There are a lot of initiatives.
And they're needed.
And
that's the thing. It's not like they're
Right.
not needed. They
No.
are needed. But having that support, I think, makes
Right.
a huge difference to make sure it's not overwhelming to have to, be on top of, in addition to your own classroom,
We need
So,
to support our teachers. We need to support our teachers. And, that's, again, like that really needs to be our priority, and that's what we're looking to shift to.
This isn't
with
going to
this model.
change any of the reading and math itinerants in the schools that are currently in there, correct?
No, we still have all of our reading teachers and all of our math interventionists, so that doesn't change any of that.
Thank you.
We could use more of those,
I
too.
know, yeah, I'm
But
on it.
again, we have to set priorities based on what we have for a budget, and so that's where we are right now.
Can I ask Craig
Yep.
2 questions, please? Can I ask Craig?
Yeah.
Craig, question, can you tell us, what we're being funded, the difference from the city to the school, and if it's increased over the last 5, 8 years?
Yeah.
Not to the max, but.
Last year it did.
So the funding from the city has been gradually increasing each year. So last year we asked for the maximum amount that we could, 2 million, almost 2.1, and change. Year before that, I think was 600,000.
Not enough.
Year before that, in COVID, was a lot less. But yeah. So
And how, what I mean is by the percentage rate, like 57% going back.
no, we're still.
No, that's what I'm saying.
It's still, even though the money has gone up, the percentage of what the city funds is still on the lower side. And that number I don't have right off
I think it's
my
44.
head. So it was around, I wanted to say 46, 47.
It
So,
hasn't changed
but I don't want
in the
to,
time you've sat here.
12 years it hasn't
No, it really
changed?
hasn't.
In 12 years?
it's been,
I'm just curious, for just learning purposes, who sets that maximum? Is that maximum based on
State.
that 44% that the city sets? Like,
No,
So
no, 44% is what the city gives us of
sure,
their budget.
sure.
So like neighboring state is 86,
Right.
neighboring
oh, yeah,
town.
but I'm curious, like, if $2.2 million in last year's budget was the maximum,
that's
that's
so
set by the state. What the maximum can
set by
be.
state law that we can ask the
Okay.
city for. Maximum is 4% over the previous
So
year.
we asked
allotment.
the city last year for the maximum, and they provided us with the maximum.
Correct.
Is that something that we should expect to see again this year?
110%.
Thank you.
Well, there's also actually, now that we have our Charter Commission chair up here, I'll say it too. There's also something also limiting our ability to increase our percentage that we get from the city, and that also is on the city charter as well. The city is limited as to how much they can increase our funding based on the tax. They can only they increase the tax so much. So there's that too also, and taken into consideration as to what the limit is, even though the state has a higher percentage as a limit than our city.
So going back to what,
There's two things.
well, going back to like what Jess was saying 5 minutes ago in terms of the outcomes from the EPLAC meeting she attended, what door, whose door are we banging on?
The state.
State and city council, because city council can decide whether
Is the
to cut
city
our budget
council
or not.
liaison here in attendance tonight?
No, they are not.
No.
But we will, and I was looking, again at what our options are to kind of make sure that we're all on the same page. And Title 16 allows us to do a joint meeting with the city council to make sure that they also get that budget workshop with our administration. So that is also a tool in our tool belt to make sure that they have a full understanding of what the need is, because there is a high need, and there's only been an increase in the need because of the pandemic also. It's there, not just the test scores say it, but it's also observed by administrators and teachers, and we've all heard about the reports and the needs from everyone. And having that very clear and open discussion with our city council, I think, can only help us get to the full funding that we really need from our city. And definitely, obviously, the State House is also the best place to go, but I'm also thinking of what can we do within this school year, and that's our city council. We need to make sure that they are working with us. So yes, that option, having that joint meeting with them, is an option. And an option that I would leave it up to the rest of the members to either agree to, not tonight specifically, but to consider. I know in April will be, in May will be a time for us to kind of really consider that as an option. But I do want to bring that up since we're discussing fundings.
Mr. Ferrara, to answer your question, 44% is what the City of East Providence municipal budget contribution to the school department is. We presented that last year.
And that hasn't changed? Would you be able to, or Craig could research that
We
for
could
us?
look at, yeah, last year was the first budget that I prepared, but
Because Jess, we feel comfortable saying that's where it's been for 10, 12 years.
I think it went up either 1 or 2%.
I do think at one point, Tony, I want to say right before 2018, or I think we were at 46% or 48%. No, we weren't that high, but I thought we were.
I thought it was 47, just that's why.
Yeah, and you might be right around then.
We went down on it.
And we did, and I know when I was sitting over there, well, at the other City Hall, I remember 44 was the number that we always ran with, was 44.
But the thing is that the population grew 340 something kids in two and a half years, and we deal with that same percentage rate, you know, so it's.
I mean, the population, I'll just give you an example, and I wanted to say this earlier, but at Riverside Middle School, I had just got for the PTA, I had just quoted a price for a truck to come of so many students a month ago. It's gone up 11 students.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just something like that, 11 students in a month, and I got the number on Friday, and I was like, that's not the number I quoted. So yeah, the numbers are, you know, wherever they're coming from, they're up.
So are there any other questions or comments on the creation of the instructional coaches position? Yes.
Just one question. So if we approve this tonight, what would be the minor changes that we'd see to this job description be over time?
so we actually increased the minimum qualifications.
Okay.
So more experience, more professional development requirements. Like I said, we want the best people in those positions, so that really was the changes that, you know, as we talked it through today, that we were looking to make. It's not really in what they do. What they do will stay the same. It's what their qualifications are for the position.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments regarding the instructional coaching positions? Alrighty. Next item, please.
Next item is the Director of Finance report, Craig Enos.
Good evening again. As you were sent earlier, the fiscal year 21 audit has been completed by our auditing firm of Clifton and Larson. There are two pieces to the audit. There's the audited financial statements, which you already have, and because we have over $1 million in federal grant expenditures, we have what's called a single audit. That portion of the audit has not been completed yet. Once that gets completed, I'll bring that back to you for your approval and your review. Some numbers that I want to review with you tonight, which I know you always ask about. So for the balance of our school unrestricted fund, so our balance at the end of the fiscal year was $4,660,936, as compared to the fiscal year 20 audit of a balance of $2,746,221. So an increase of $1,914,715. A really very good, solid place for the school department to be at financially for our fund balance. Due from, as you remember, some years ago, in July of 2022, we received our third payment of the $1,628,386.25. The fourth and final payment from the city will be coming this July. So that will be the fourth and final payment of the $6 million and change of school department funds that they were holding. And lastly, for the OPEB, other post-employment benefits, funds we are required to set aside to offset health insurance costs for the retirees. The OPEB account that we have, just like the cities, is managed through the Rhode Island Interlocal Risk Management Trust. We continue to make steady progress towards the funding at that account, which is being funded at 50.9%, which is an increase of an 8% funding over the previous year. So relatively all great news. Clean audit. There were no items that were noted by the auditors. My thanks, as always, to our controller, Mike Hubert, who is a great partner and just does a fantastic job for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Through the chair for one moment.
Yes.
Craig, last time when you said great news, then you gave us bad news and you said, oh, that was my sarcasm. So just double checking if that's not.
This is good.
Okay, got it.
This is all
Just
good.
needed to, because that was great
This is all
acting the other
good.
day, by the way. Great acting.
I'm still thinking about it every day.
That's right. He just
Every
said
day.
great news. Those
Every
words.
day, Craig. Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item, Policy Committee Report, Jessica Beauchesne.
So, I was gonna say.
I'm going to
is
turn
there-
this over to the chair because
All right. Yep.
I don't know anything about this.
So the school buildings visitation policy and protocol was provided in your packets. I asked our legal, Ben Scungio, to prepare the policy for us in confirmation that the current policy that we've been following for the past year, 2 years and 4 months now, that it was all in compliance. For the past 2 years and 4 months, we've been, Mr. Brandel and I have been, scheduling tours with the previous director of facilities, over the weekends, whenever we needed access to something like that with him. We went through that process and having that done. So then I figured it would be appropriate to have that, on paper, just as a, formalities of what we've been doing, for the last 2 years. And I know that also Mr. Creenan and Mr. Brandel have been doing that this year as well, when they toured all of these schools, I think, in the span of 3 months. So, with the help of our superintendent, and they were able to, do that and get all the information that that they were looking for, and it really helps, I think, in making sure that there is that understanding, with the administration of we are here to really understand what you're working on, what is needed. So that was the intention in going into asking for this from our attorney. So I definitely want to hear any questions or comments regarding it as well. Since he was the one that fully prepared this, I would definitely jot down any other proposals so I can send that over to him as well. So any questions or comments from the members?
I just wanted to say very quickly that an interesting thing that I think would be beneficial to add to this policy is putting something in here about requiring us as school committee members to wear our school ID lanyards, because I think our staff have to wear them, so we should be just as accountable to be wearing them as well for identification purposes when we're in buildings during school days.
I like that. I think Ms. Boucher is actually the one person that I always see, always with it. Every no matter where we go, no matter what meeting, even if it's executive session, she'll always
Actually,
walk in with it.
I didn't know it wasn't an option. I always wear my badge in schools, and if I'm there for a different reason, then I wear the badge that is provided for me. So I think that, again, I don't know how you get into a school without one.
Yeah.
So,
And that's best practice. And I think I like that idea a lot, to add that. So I'll have Ben also include language for that. Are there any other questions or comments by the members?
So the primary purpose of this policy is the protection of students, faculty, and staff from injuries, as well as reduction in fires and other type of losses that can result in operation interruption or cause extensive repair costs. That's what this policy is for.
That's the reasoning that the Title 16 provides, which is, that's the purpose of, in school building inspections. That's
Right, but that's not what
they
this
outline, yeah.
policy is, not a school building inspection. So
No.
that's where my problem I
Yeah.
have with this, and that's kind of where I was getting with you. This is not a policy for school building inspection. I am all for school building inspections. I'm all for going in with the superintendent at the beginning of the school, at the end of school, all of us walking around with the facilities director, and all of us together going through or on separate occasions and picking out what needs to be fixed. But this isn't that policy here. This is not what's written in the policy.
So that's to just differentiate between, what different inspections can be, even though that there are ones that would actually be required by, professionals in our communities, like fire, police type of inspections, or city inspections, other city inspections as well. So that's also has to be, looped in, just so that there is also no other confusion as to us putting a limit on that as well. And actually, one other thing too, actually, wanted to toss it up as an idea to also do an attachment to this, kind of an example of what it would not include, like our typical visits to the schools to read to classes, or parent-teacher conferences, sporting events, meeting with whoever you're already set to meet. So to have that clarification too, because
Well,
I know that's,
I don't need clarification, because when I go to a parent-teacher conference, I'm going as a Sydney Olson's parent. Oh my God, I should not have said her last name. But that's what I'm doing. I'm not going as a school committee member.
yeah.
I'm not. So I'm not gonna wear my badge. I'm gonna go in at my assigned time. I'm gonna go in for the parent-teacher conference, and I'm going to leave. So I don't think there needs to be clarification of that. In my opinion.
That was my concern, was that if that wasn't clear. So if I'm glad that you think that.
I don't know how Ryan feels about this, but
So
for the
that's
last
why-
9 years, I have never abused my policy on whether or not I go to my daughter's school or attend, or my son's stuff. I don't even wear my badge when I go to the baseball game, but I'm there because I'm supporting students.
It's a public event, like it's a school event, yeah.
I mean, I wear this to EPLAC. I probably don't need to, but I do, because I'm there as a representation of a school committee member and a parent. So I'm not really sure. I don't know. I understand the need for this policy, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. I understand snooping. I understand coming in after hours. I understand all of that, but I am not going to call all 4 of you when I found out the pipe fell down, because I didn't call all 4 of you. I came on my own. I mean, Tony knew I was coming,
Yeah.
or whoever was here at the time knew I was coming. I don't remember who knew I was coming, but I don't think I need to call all 4 of you to tell you that I'm going to go look at something at a school. That's
Yeah.
my
And
opinion.
in that occasion, like this wouldn't apply, like that's.
But in this,
that's
it
like
doesn't say
a
that.
serious event that's happening out there,
It says that if I came to a school, like I guess I have a different working relationship. If that relationship needs to end with my principals in the schools, then that's fine, and that will end. But I don't know what you want me to do for my job, considering that the sole purpose is pretty much maintain school buildings and everything else that is in Title 16.
Yeah, if I can.
I don't know really anymore what you want me to do. I don't hire, I don't fire, I hire a superintendent and she runs the school district. But if I have an issue with a heating problem and 7 teachers from one school call me, I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm going. Because I have Title 16 in my back pocket and I'm allowed to go.
And that's the working relationship that I think has worked perfectly, not just with our current superintendent, but has also worked with our previous one, at least while I was here
But
as
if
well.
I'm at a school
Like,
and-
like,
and
it's been, by that point, it's already been consent, right? Like, you, at no point,
I mean, building committee
can you
members
be,
have
you know,
more
stopped.
authority than I do.
Yeah.
And that's bull.
Well, just not to interrupt you, and I'm stating it now. And you know just me long enough to say that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna push this issue as far as I can. I wanna see what happens to me. Because this is all based on me and what I've done for 10 years in this district. I'm going to continue doing it until somebody takes me to court. That is, I'm stating that now publicly.
And that's all on you,
Well,
but I
that's-
do want to like let you know though that there's also that very fine line between the branch of oversight, which is us, and there's a line also of management. And
Correct.
once we cross that line of management, it is no longer just, oh, you know, the rest of the school committee or superintendent just wants to, you know, bully you or anything. It becomes a question of personnel. And that has been an issue in other years, and not you, I'm talking about like just, you know, with the city or whether it's in like the school committee as well. There's that line of we cannot be dictating what employees are doing. That is not appropriate, and that is also a breach of our responsibilities as school committee.
So instead,
So-
let's make that policy.
So that, and that's exactly what this is, because that was, that very careful explanation, what I asked Ben is that it's just, it cannot limit our powers as school committee in inspecting the schools, because that is our responsibility by Title 16. It's just a limitation on the management aspect of it, is that we can't be, you know, putting employees in that difficult position of, you know, can you let me in at, you know, 12 p.m. at, you know, 12 a.m. in, you know, in the wee hours of the morning, or 3 a.m. You know what I'm saying? Like there's that, also that line of, we have to be mindful of the employees. And believe me, if anyone in the administration is like, oh yeah, you are barred from entering the schools, I too will, that is not okay. At no point should any of us be barred and be told by, and not that you have done that at any point where you like, you can't enter the school, or I'm barring you from, you know, entering whatever. If that ever becomes an issue, which it hasn't, I'm right there with anyone here that would not be okay, and we would definitely have to address that. That is not what's on here. It is just for the purpose of the outlining of the management aspect and what our role as school committee is. The consent is already implied when there's already been an ongoing procedures in place that have been followed. So in that so that's that portion of that. And then there's a portion of the management. So the management aspect, we have to be very, very, very mindful. So that's the purpose of this, and that was the reason why Ben was very extensive in including, you know, all the different definitions, because there are different types of inspections. But it's also to really outline what subject matters are we, you know, able to do, and nowhere in there is it, you know, you're able to dictate what employees are doing, what our principals are doing, what the director is doing, because that all, as we know, falls under our superintendent. We do not have the powers to do that. But again, you know, we don't have keys to get in, so that means what? We either are going to events that are open and available to us, or we're putting people, employees in uncomfortable positions and giving us access that isn't already granted to us. So that is also in consideration to have. Yes, Max, sorry.
It's okay.
You've been waiting.
I just wanted to get one clarification on one line where it,
Yes.
on the first page where it says, individual school committee members may inspect a school site only with prior consent of the school committee.
Mm-hmm.
So the way me and Ryan did it, and I'm pretty sure the way me and you did it as
Tony.
well, was we basically just reached out to the superintendent and also the facilities director, and then they would coordinate with the principal. But like at no point did we ever like reach out to the rest of the school committee to ask for their permission. So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like the one part where I'm not too sure about how that would work out.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I'll definitely tell him to clarify that it would just be with our superintendent then.
We don't need
So
Ben to clarify that. We're
to
writing
take
this,
that out,
we as a school
you know?
committee write policy.
Yeah.
We as a school committee write policy. Ben does not write policy. He can help us write policy, we can ask him to write policy, but we as a school committee write policy. That's what we do. So if we as a school committee do not like that line, then we can take it out. We don't need to have Ben take it out for us.
Oh, no, I know, but I also want it to be done for the other pages as well and make sure that everything is, I don't want to misrepresent what, Title 16. So yes, we can definitely take out what we want to take out, but I also don't want it to be in contradiction to what Title 16 says, which I don't think it will.
So have we been in contradiction
Which-
of Title 16
which-
for the past 10 years? Have I? Because if
No.
I am, I need to know.
No, definitely not.
And if I have,
You know?
I need to know, because this is all.
Hey,
left
listen,
to
I don't
me.
wake up people at midnight. You do,
What's that?
to get into places.
I don't wake people up at midnight.
Oh.
If I go to a PTA meeting and after the meeting, if I wanna walk around the building, I'm gonna still do that. And if somebody gets me a legal written that I cannot do that, I'm not gonna go to a PTA meeting, after the meeting, call anybody on the phone at 59 years old to walk to a building. So when you say that people were getting in at 12 o'clock, I have a record of going to PTA meetings, all the functions. I'm gonna get back into the swing of it hopefully in 2 weeks. I've been known to put ladders on these buildings on the weekend to inspect $8 million rubber roof jobs. I'm going to the same thing until somebody gives me a judge's order not to do it. So if we can move on to the next item,
And
that's
just-
what we're gonna
and
do.
just-
Because then they can trespass me, they can arrest me, they can do whatever. I did it for 10 years, I got elected at large, I'm
And
gonna
for-
do the same thing.
Calling
So-
a meeting to order. And for
It's
10
in
years,
order.
we were having issues with personnel. People have left the school district in droves. We lost our last director because of behaviors that were crossing the line. So yes, there are consequences, and maybe it's not towards you, and you're fine to see, great qualified, employees of the school district leaving because they feel either uncomfortable, threatened, feel like they are not valued in the school district. If that's fine, because as long as it didn't affect you, then by all means, feel okay with that. But that is, I think, very shocking to say that you're just going to completely disregard, what the superintendent has, put in place and has asked us to respectfully, have in mind as she has entered,
See,
as superintendent. And I don't want to put you on the spot, superintendent, but question about, I guess, the working relationship also with our facilities director. Have you denied access to any school committee member before to any building? Has that, I just want to make sure I also have all the information, maybe something,
We've never denied access to anyone.
okay, thank you.
I've also never asked.
Yeah. And
So
that's,
I think that's fair for me to say, because
Right,
I
and-
haven't been able to be denied, but I also, for the benefit, I'm extremely involved in our schools. So I'm not going to something to find a problem. I'm not going to inspect a school to find a problem. I'm being told to go there because there is a problem. So I think from now on, if anybody, principals, administrators have problems with me personally, and I'm only speaking for myself because right now I'm just one person sitting here, then they need to go to you. And you as a superintendent need to say, call me up and be like, Jess, you can't go to Riverside and walk around when there's puddles of water and parents are calling you and kids are crying because they're soaking wet, and I end up showing up and then I call you to show up with me.
Right.
Like,
and
I think that's
typically,
what the purpose of this is.
Right, and members have typically texted me or called me if there's an issue in a school, and I appreciate that, because I can direct personnel to fix the
Correct.
issue.
I don't
So
call personnel. But it happens to me more than not, and I apologize. I'm in the schools. I'm part of this community. I happen to be a lot of places. Not as many as I would like anymore, but at one time I was. And I'm not gonna, I drop my kid off at school and all of a sudden I see a retaining wall falling. Oh, just keep on driving. No, that's not who I am, guys.
Jess, we walked
And
through
you've
these
been really
buildings.
great also in always communicating that with the superintendent and also notifying, not notifying like officially,
But something like
but
this
you've
is-
been like really good with keeping us informed with those issues, because
Well, what
yeah,
would that's what I'm supposed to do.
and that's
I mean,
think,
we're elected by the people. And those people want me to make sure our schools are safe and clean and working. And I guess that's where I'm saying. And if you're telling me that I can't do this now, I honestly, I'm not going to do what Tony's doing. And I understand that may be a little over the top, but you're taking what I've done for 9 years and telling me it wasn't right. And I do have a problem with that.
And Jess, I don't take offense to that, because I respect what you just said, but the flip side that it may look like it's over the top, what I'm doing, but 41 years experience, like I got pictures in my phone now that I have to show the superintendent that pertain to outside these buildings. When that parent called me about the toilets overflowing, the first thing I called was the superintendent, because it was during the day. And I had mentioned that I very, very rarely in 10 years come into these buildings during the day when education is going on. And the problem is, when a teacher calls me, or anybody calls me, that there's problems in these buildings, there's documentation where I was involved with the RFPs for these buildings, all kind of things in Save This districts, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So let's put
and for the entirety of the time that you've been back for the last 4 months, not once have you scheduled a serious sit down with our superintendent and our director of facilities. Not once have you sat down with them and said, look, these are all the issues I have found. Here are all the issues I have seen accumulate for the past, I don't know, the time that you were not here. You did not do that. So yes, that is our responsibility, but I haven't seen you take an action on that since you've been here for the last 4 months. So the urgency here I think is really fascinating, because it hasn't happened yet.
What hasn't happened? I talked to Sandy in Riverside for almost an hour and a half. We went there. Chris wasn't there. So you can sit there and say what you want, but I can prove otherwise, and the superintendent's sitting right there.
We've tried doing the facility subcommittee, and you turned that down. So yeah, that's really interesting coming from someone that has all the experience. You haven't taken the opportunity on doing the whole facility subcommittee. That is also a tool that we have as school committee to really make sure that we are on top of all of that. Yes, with doing the inspections, with making sure that issues are being addressed, that is what subcommittees are for. So.
Everybody can continue doing what they want, just like I'm gonna do, with no disrespect to anybody sitting up here. That's what I'm gonna do. Into a court says I can't do it. If anybody wants to push it that far, I'm okay with it. I do not enter these buildings during education time. I do not ask custodians to open doors, everything that I'm being accused of. It's a downright lie. Period. Period.
Next item, please.
Thank you.
Next item is discussion items.
Updating our dress code under the Code of Student Conduct. We have met with Mr. Brandel and I with Miss Kayla Cornier, and I know the previous week Mr. Brandel and Miss Buchain met with the same teacher and this Queenan, sorry. Mr. Queenan and Ms. Buchain with the same journalism class with Ms. Cornier to discuss the topic of dress code. And that also includes the phone use. Funny enough, that's actually included together under the dress code, but that was included on the agenda for both, just to avoid any confusion with our discussion. So I'll turn the table to Ms. Buchain if she would like, because I know you've had this on your radar since since before,
Yeah.
this month, so that's why I'll turn it over to you.
I have also met with Shout last year and Martin Middle School's Student Council. Previously, this has been going on for like 6 years, trying to update and change the dress code policy. I don't think it personally is right to be like, okay, this is what the dress code policy, what we think it is, without administration being involved. And I think during one part in COVID, it kind of fell to the wayside because I did try to get administration on board to talk with teachers and other people within the building. I will tell you, the kids were fabulous, but I also want to tell you, Mr. Hanlon put a different spin for me when we were listening to him talk. He made me think of stuff that I didn't think would be a problem. And one of the things he did say, and I do, because I don't know if it was talked about with you guys, but I do want to address
go through
this,
the whole thing and then we'll add.
I honestly did not think that hoods were an issue. And so hats, I have come into this school with hats on with Mr. Montero, both of us wearing hats and walking around, and I realized, oh my God, why do we have hats on and they can't? But when Mr. Hanlon brought up the hoods, he literally said to the kids in the class, what if 400 students were walking down the hall all with hoods on? And I didn't even think about that, because he said, what you think about one, you have to think about all. And because I was like, what really does a hood matter? Until you think about 400 students walking down this high school with a hood on. So I don't know if that was brought up in your room, but it was brought up in mine, and it made me think twice that here I am thinking about individual students, and I know I'm supposed to be thinking about individual students, but if you think of all of them wearing, what are they called? I don't want to embarrass my daughter. What are the things called that go in your ears? Earbuds, thank you. If they're all wearing them, then no one can hear you. If one person's wearing them, it's not that big of a deal. But if every child is wearing them down the hall and something happens, so I do want to preface by saying that because it changed my way of thinking. So, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to speak on what happened in ours? Because I also did learn the safety aspect, and that there were things that I had not taken into account. So thank you to Principal Black that also gave that additional perspective to Mr. Brandel and I.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Yeah, what I'll definitely say about this process is what I really appreciated about it was the fact that, students were able to give their input. The principal was there as well to give his input, and then, of course, there was a survey that was sent out, I believe, to the entire student. Was it to all the teachers or to the teachers at the high school? And it really created a process where everybody was allowed to give their input on what they specifically think could be improved, both with the, dress code and the phone use policy. So I think overall it was just really interesting to hear a lot of what the students have to say. And when you really listen to both sides, it kind of gives you an idea of where there can be room for working together to, say, okay, maybe we can't go this far, but maybe there's certain things that we can now allow, like, such as anything that would make the policy less, in my opinion, sexist, culturally insensitive, etc. But there's, for example, do-rags. One of the students mentioned that they would like to be able to wear do-rags, and I think so long as it's not concealing your identity or, covering your face or your ears, I don't see any reason why it's not something that students should be allowed to do. So I think we just need to look at the way the wording is on both of these things and see what we can do to improve them.
Just to add to that too, is bonnets as well. I know they use that as an example, and the fact that it seemed to be that it wasn't applied equally as well. There seemed to be certain body types being dress coded more than others, and for that reason too, I think it's important to take that into consideration when we're looking at the language and being clear as to what those items are okay to have, so that way it's a lot, I think, clearer for when they're applying it too. So I also really like that research that one of the students presented, which was wording the dress code in a way that it's more of a positive spin to it. So it's like, here are the items that are permissible, and of course there'll always be like those items that aren't, that I think are more on the safety side than anything. But regarding like the technology aspect as well, right now just having a phone in the school building is a violation, and it's I think where we are today, it's kind of a necessity at this point, even like part of our limbs. So having that change to possibly increasing that to you know, hallway time use or lunchroom use also decreases the, you know, distractibility also of like, oh, what's happening? It's been over like, you know, 5-8 hours. I'm sure they're looking at it in the bathroom, but less constraint on that, because if it's their free time, I think they should have that option to really decompress in a way that they feel it is helpful. And from what I've heard, it seems like having that ability to kind of check what's happening, either with their family members or friends, that kind of helps them out. Also, what I thought was really interesting from what a student proposed was putting their cell phones up at that classroom, so there's also not that temptation of, oh, let me check it on the side, which is what always happens in college. It's either, well, in other schools too, it's you just put it to the side, or it's on your desk and you're always looking over. And that's, I can see that temptation being there, because, you know, I feel like even as adults that's an issue. So the fact that the students even propose the idea of like, all right, beginning of the classroom, like let's be mindful of the, you know, teacher will leave our phones up at her desk, and they even propose that idea of having like a liability waiver too sent home.
They did that, yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like, yes, that's, because that was the first thing that came to mind. I was like, oh no, the liability of it if it breaks.
They mentioned that, and I think it's great. Listen, when it comes down to it, and I would have liked to have been part of adding to the questionnaire that went out to administration, because one of the questions I would ask is, how many times a day do you dress code somebody? Or how many times a day do you get interrupted because you're dress coding someone? I didn't even know dress coding was a verb. Like, it's used more in my house than the word the. And I'm not joking. It is used, you will hear it, so-and-so get dress code, so-and-so get dress code, so-and-so get dress code. So in my opinion, where is the learning? Because all I want is an equitable, necessary, something that helps maximize learning time for students. That's the kind of dress code I want. An equitable one, and one that allows unnecessarily, I don't need all this discipline because of dress coding. We need discipline for many other reasons. And yeah, I see what the kids wear. I see it.
And a lot of that is out of our control too, like the shorts, like
You
those
can't buy
type of
shorts.
shorts. Man, like you might have to go to a vintage store to find that.
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you.
It's not accessible at all.
We don't have in the dress code, but I'm going to state this. Number one, because I love your shoes. But what if my daughter wore these shoes to school? They're beautiful, but the heels are very high. That's not safe. It's not safe here. It just can't be safe. But that's not in the dress code. Listen, I came up with something, but again, I want to hear, I can't tell kids what they can and cannot wear. I'm not there, but I do make policy and I can help.
It's just, so I was at I was with Jess Bouchain, you know, and it really comes down to a couple of real simple, if we look around right now, we all have our phones on our table. It's 2023. A 14-year-old is not, for the most part, and this is an assumption, but most 14-year-olds are not paying $700 for an iPhone and then a $100 monthly bill. And so parents are aware their children have phones on them.
And for how long they're on, because it tells you.
I mean, a big part of this really is
Time.
there's two major things that are, it comes down, one, to trust and responsibility. And it's not just our students, it's our teachers and administration as well. Trusting our students to be able to be responsible in using their phones. And number two, this is a great step towards progress of exciting and engaging the student body here at East Providence High School to become aware of what written policies are and the process that it takes to create or change policy. So, you know, the students that are part of Ms. Cornier's class were extremely engaged, really well spoken, and did some really good research on the policies in other districts in Rhode Island to compare to the policy we have here, which I believe our technology policy still includes a lot of language surrounding pagers. To kind of just put perception as to how old that policy is. So I think these are you know, I think again it comes down to really just like, do we trust our students and respect them, and you know, trust them enough to respect teachers, you know, policies in the classroom, you know, before it becomes a distraction. And also in terms of like, you know, the dress code, I think there were suggestions. It might have been, you know, a neighboring town that part of their dress code was, you know, hats, do-rags, and bonnets can be worn. However, eyebrows and earlobes have to be, you know, be able to be seen as a security and safety measure. And the students, there was no pushback when that was brought up. You know, I think this is just a wonderful opportunity to be able to engage the students. We're all here, you know, because of the students here in our district to, you know, provide them better, you know, the best opportunities available. And I think by allowing them to become aware of policies that are about them and make change is a really great step in the right direction. Yeah.
And I believe Principal Black is working on that initial proposal to bring to us with Ms. Cornier in her class. Do you know if that has been completed by any chance, Superintendent?
So they sent out a survey to the entire student body, and they have about 200 responses at this point from students. We also, as a district, have put together a committee because this is an entire district dress code and cell phone policy that we enforce at all our schools. So we did put together a district team to look at the policy and make recommendations if you would like us to continue with that team to make a recommendation to you.
So I'm not sure how you feel, but I would like to be kind of looped in with, I guess, what the administration's working on. I know we have to be careful with what's happening directly with our, you know, our staff, but I like to at least kind of know where this, you know, the changes have been, like if once it's done, you know, what the updates are on the completion of it, I guess, if that makes sense. So that we can kind of maybe at some point also pop in with them as the policy subcommittee. That's just thoughts that I had.
Did you get what she sent us yesterday?
No.
So she sent us from her class yesterday. It went to all of us. And the images that she included, whether that was her idea or the student's idea, and I'm assuming it was collaborative, is amazing. Because if you look at some really large school districts, maybe not in Rhode Island, but locally around here, most of them say yes, no. So that you get a visual that this is not acceptable and this is acceptable. I'm all for the images.
That came up actually when we
Yeah,
went.
I have a really good example of a school district that did it.
Not to take credit, because I had brought up the images part, but I'm sure that they thought about it before I even brought it up. I'm not sure if they meant to add that part in, that they had wanted to add. But I think that's especially helpful because maybe there are some teachers that are not aware of what those items are too.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So especially for like it, you know, if you're someone that really hasn't had too much experience with different people from different backgrounds, you know, you may not know what a hijab is or like what a do-rag is or a bonnet. There are different types of bonnets. So having those pictures, I think, is also very clear of like, here's what goes and here's what doesn't.
So-
there's no room for like
Right.
too much discretion. Discretion would be like if it's lewd or not, which
One
again is applied to even other garments.
One of the lines on this paper that I think, and did not come from us, so it's the kids, was school principals will have final authority in their building in deciding what constitutes compliance with this code. I think that, in my opinion, if the principal is the principal, then that needs to be true. You know, I don't think maybe elementary versus middle versus high school should have the same dress code. The other thing that, in my opinion, I would like to add, and this came from another dress code policy, was that clothing must be suitable for scheduled classroom activities, including physical education, science lab, wood shop, automotive. I think that we need to add because, again,
An exception.
what's good for some classes may not be. And I do think where unique hazards exist is what it says. So, hey, this dress code literally says students must wear clothing, including both a shirt with pants or a skirt or the equivalent. For example, dresses, leggings, or shorts and shoes. Shirts and dresses must have fabric in the front and on both sides. So this one is pretty good. It goes on. I'm not going to read it because I do want to hear what everyone has to say. Like, it's not.
So do you want us to move forward with the committee?
I would
Or
like you to.
or are you going to make a proposal and handle it?
Oh, no, I want them to put it, I want to see what they put together because they're the ones that are getting the feedback on the survey. They're the ones that have done the students have done so much research on this. I want to see what they put together. And I'm very, very happy that Teacher Cornier reached out to us and invited us for that, because seeing their engagement and seeing how invested they were in it was really heartwarming. And I think it's our responsibility as school committee to really harness that and take care of it and encourage it. And I also brought up to them to come to the second, your first passage, second read in the future, because it's good to have them see that yes, there is not just people listening, but there are actions being taken, and that's something that is not seen a lot of times, I feel, in Rhode Island or this country in general from students. So we get to really, encourage that, and I want to make sure that they really get to have that full credit once that gets presented to us for a vote. And that's collaboration that I'm very happy to see that's coming from also with our new building. It's great to see. So I'm not sure if there's any other comments or questions about the dress code or phone use.
So can we get the feedback from when that committee finishes getting all of its information, just to see what they come up with? Thank you.
If we could somehow, again, I don't know what the questions are like, if it's multiple choice or if it's like a write-in type of thing. But if it's not like an overly complicated survey, maybe having the results sent over to us. If it's multiple choice, it'd be great to see like what the answers were to that, for all of us to be able to really see what the feedback was on that. That's also really reaffirming as people that have to vote on that, really saying, okay, is this really truly something that a lot of people agree with, type of thing. So, any other questions or comments from the committee for dress code or phone use? All right. The next item we have is increasing student input with the school committee. I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Brandel.
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts about this topic just in general, but I kind of wanted to just put this on here as a discussion item so that way we as a school committee could have a conversation doesn't have to be anything extremely specific, but just generally speaking, what we can do to get more feedback from students, input, anything that we can do, whether it's, sharing our contact information, because I mean, I don't know what everyone else's experience is, but when I, go to like the high school, I mean, how many students actually know who we are or what a school committee is? If you seriously just think about that question, it turns out that many students don't know where our school committee meetings are, they don't know who we are, and that just shows, in my opinion, that's something that we're not doing right and that we can improve upon. So I wrote down a few things that we could really do to kind of help get more student input, and then I'll open it up to everyone else what they think, if they have any alternative ideas. So the first thing I was thinking of was offering community service hours for students to attend meetings. And obviously community service hours are something you need 24 of to graduate from the high school. And I also think you could, make it like a cap so you can't get more than 4 hours no matter how many meetings you come to as a student, just to make sure that they're getting the rest of their community service hours in other areas. But I think offering community service hours just for coming to meetings as a student is a pretty interesting idea. It might work, it might not, but I think it's an interesting thing to try, and in my opinion, it's definitely serving your community to be, civically engaged in your local government. I was also thinking about an idea of seeing if there's any way we could come up with more of like an advisory committee, whether it's between, a group of students from grades 5 to 12, and they could, talk with us as a school committee, or even, meet with the superintendent, whatever it might be, something in that area where we can try to get as much student input as possible. And it could be a group of students from different backgrounds, high-performing students, low-performing students, getting, a diverse collection of input in there from different students. I also put down emailing the school committee's contact info to all students. I guess that could be specifically for the high school, but because I know they definitely use emails, but a lot of the students, even when we were just at that class on Friday, they said that they weren't aware of what our emails were. And so I think getting our emails out there to students, even if we have to, put up like flyers at the high school, if we update the phone use code, we could even have like QR codes that could go to the district website and have basically it's the page where it has like our emails and our name. So I think that's an interesting idea. And also just seeing if there's any way that we could potentially work closer with our student liaisons. I think that's another interesting thing to think about. I'm not exactly sure specifically of how we can make that happen, but I'm sure that there's a way that we could get our student liaisons to be more active rather than just, basically just speaking at that podium and then that's essentially it. I'm sure there's some other additional role that they could play and, just basically getting more involved with us. So that's some of the things that I've been thinking of, as well as also, I'm not aware if we send videos of our school committee meetings to the students or teachers, but I think that's just another interesting thing that we can do, because I know a lot of students don't have the transportation to come to our school committee meetings, but they might still want to be involved, even if it's just for the sake of wanting to, fill their own knowledge behind, what's a school committee, what do we do, how do we impact them directly, things like that. So I'll let everyone else jump in with what they think or if they have any alternative ideas, but that's kind of just some of the things that I've been thinking about.
Another thing, actually, just to go off of the first thing that you brought, or maybe it's the second one, about our contact information. I think even potentially, and just based on what they were saying too, they were like, we don't know what you look like, we don't know where to find you. So definitely, obviously, improve the accessibility part. But I think also there's that part that may feel a little bit off-putting for a student to reach out without knowing, okay, who is this though? I know as a student, I would feel more comfortable knowing, all right, like this is what their face is, like this is the person who I'm emailing, than just like, oh, just a random, name on the screen and I'm sure it's a person on the other side type of thing. So potentially having that. And I know another student also mentioned about, you know, making sure that they know that we are, you know, here to, you know, serve them, obviously. I really like the idea that a student mentioned about having an assembly. They asked Principal Black, which I thought was so sweet. They're like, we really want to see you at assemblies, like schooling, sporting events. But this assembly part was really new to me. We told them, we were like, oh yeah, we'll go to like sporting events. But it was the fact that they asked for the assembly part that I was like, oh, you want us like here, like present at some point during school hours to, you know, come and speak and stuff. So that to me was really eye-opening on how much they really, you know, were like wanting to make sure that we were, you know, in the know type of thing.
Yeah, I know one of the students had also mentioned about, you know, potentially inviting, you know, like 2 members to come during wind blocks at the high school to just kind of speak to students about really just anything, listening to students' concerns, or even just speaking on who we are as a school committee, what we do, how we impact students in our school district. And I think that's another interesting idea.
And I think like a real obvious solution to increasing student input with the school committee is exactly what Mrs. Cornier did. She reached out to the school committee and she invited us to come to her classroom to listen to groups of students talk. And one of the students, when we were leaving, asked Jess and I, how come he's a graduating senior from high school, and this is the second school district or third, or, you know, he's been in, and he's never once ever had a school committee member come to a classroom and talk to students. And Jess and I really just simply let him know it was 12:30 on a Friday afternoon. We're both working adults, and instead of being at work, we took the time to go and be in that classroom on the first ask. So I think really it really comes down to if our school administrators and teachers are asking us to come out, we're going to be there. And I think there was a conversation an hour ago about being there, and I think there's one thing that can be said: every person on this committee seems dedicated to being there. And so I think Max, really, I think those are a lot of like really great ideas. And instead of, you know, I would hope that they don't get lost, because it was an extensive list. And we're, you know, to be, you know, realistic where we just are in terms of the meeting. I would wonder if there was a possibility for continuing this conversation at, you know, to make another agenda item, because there was some stuff I would like to, you know, hear again. But I think it's very important that our student body and our teachers, like, you know, we are imperfect human beings, and of course communication is not going to be 100% at all times. However, like, it's going to be a strong attempt. So if teachers reach out to members of the school committee to have us come, you know, read books on an, you know, predominantly elementary school level, or come and listen to a group of juniors and seniors in high school that want to learn about changing policies, I think I'm proud to know that we're serving with a group of people here that are willing to drop everything, which is, you know, really great. So to say it one more time, it's just, you know, if teachers want school committee members to come and listen to them or their students, they just need to ask and invite.
Right.
And I think
Strong hint.
I think that's exactly what you just said, and I think you were coming from there when you said we can't manage people. I can't say I'm going to come into a wind block and talk to your class. I need to be asked.
Well, we have to be invited. That's
Right.
the
So
thing.
that's where it comes from. It comes from teachers or principals. I will just add my 2 cents for being part of a PTA and a PTSA for over 20 years. You're all welcome to come to meetings.
I know, but that's the thing, though. Do we invite them? Do we ask them to come? You know, do we tell them, hey...
You guys come to meetings where there are students and parents.
Right, but only if we know about them.
Right,
That's
and
the
they're all
thing.
posted on our calendar. So it's a good way for you to learn not only what parents are dealing with situations, but also students, for the ones that the students go to the meetings. That's just my 2 cents on that.
Any other comments or questions about
You just
the?
want to say, Max, keep this going, whatever you got here, so that it doesn't drop, because I think it's great.
Actually, would you guys like me to just repeat this list one by one right now? Because a lot of these things, they don't really cost money. They don't take a lot of time to do. They're just simple things that we could kind of like just go over now, and if we're okay with it, they're just things that we could do. Because like, for example, the first one that I mentioned about,
Oh.
They're not actually.
No, they're not, they're not, no.
they're just basic ideas. Like, for example, offering students community service hours to attend our meetings, and it can be like a maximum of 4. You know, that doesn't cost money, that doesn't take much time. It's, oh, a student shows up.
And we
then,
sign the paper for
And
them.
we sign I could do it myself, you know?
That's-
And, you know, like the high school could advertise it. Many of the students who maybe need community service hours might not even know what the school committee is. And then, you know, we could be like, hey, this is, you know, the time of the meetings, this is what they are. And then a student could come here and we could give them those community service hours, right? I mean, it's better than what we have now, which, I mean, when do we ever see students, you know, sitting in the audience? Never. So is that something that we could do?
That's not something we need, like, RIDE or anything to approve, so that's something that we can do as in a school district, okay. How long would that be potentially something for us to kind of get rolling on then, do you think? Like for the,
I
it's
mean,
more realistic, like the new school year that's coming up, and that way we can have that as like an
Right,
option?
the thing is, community service forms, the forms already exist. We literally could just print the forms and sign them here. It's not like,
Yeah.
yeah, they just need to show up. They could have, you know, we could have been doing this for years now if we wanted to, and it's an idea that just popped into my head randomly, and I'm like, wait, why don't we do this, you know? So I don't see why we can't do that.
I guess, I mean, am I wrong? Maybe this
I'm just asking for like,
guidance would have to
yeah,
come to know?
like,
Someone, I mean.
I mean, yeah, we can speak to
so I was
guidance
gonna say, then
or
can you
the high
follow up
school.
with us on?
They're going to
on-
want to come
on
for a
how that's-
purpose. Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like, I don't think any student is going to come here and sit for 3 hours and listen to the conversation. To
I mean, if
get
they're getting community service hours, I bet they
So,
will.
I don't think they will, though, because they do have other options to get community service hours where they can be active. You know, there were a bunch of students at Empty Bowls. So, you know, maybe it's something like you offer them community service hours to come and speak about dress code. But I don't know if students would just come to hear a meeting.
I mean, this could
mean,
also.
there's
Nobody
one way to
else
find
comes.
out.
This is-
Like,
this-
we don't have anyone in the audience
What are you
but Mark.
talking about? We got Mark over
and
here.
Chrissy. But other than
There are people watching.
Yeah.
So I mean, this was like part of
But
the reason of
they're not
having
coming here
bi-monthly
to get
meetings
community
was so
service
that they weren't 3 hours long.
Exactly.
And so, but here we are, which is a good thing because there's healthy conversation taking place.
Right.
However, according to the new policy that we just passed, the school committee policy, school committee meetings need to take place in the city of East Providence. No designated time, no designated date. So we could host one or two, you know, school committee meetings during the school day.
Right.
Where we have a very minimal agenda, invite an interested class of students, a field trip. Folks could come here and we could have a conversation with a very small list of, you know, discussion items, and they can kind of just see, like, you know, how it rolls through without it being a 3-hour school committee meeting.
Yeah, and
It could be something like that, which could then turn into an opportunity for some of these.
Which
some of our-
seemed to
An
be
assembly,
a good
basically.
suggestion that
Yeah.
day,
Right.
to do
Yeah.
something
And-
like this.
An
Right, and
assembly.
then folks
That's-
also who attend, you
yeah.
could get, you know, you can come, you can
But
have
during
that
Winlock.
experience, and then you could have, you know, community service hours. Like, there you go. Here's a
Yeah,
here's a
I'd be
handful
fully
of hours.
supportive about that, because, you know, keep in mind the purpose of this item is what can we as a school committee do to increase student input? You know what I'm saying? So anything we can do. I'm not talking about, oh, how can, you know, teachers or, no, I'm just talking about what we can do.
Making
so.
ourselves available.
Right, exactly.
I really think it's what you did. It's going to them, right?
Right.
It's making yourself available when you can. It's being, you know, whatever that looks like, whatever your time commitment can be, whether it's going into classrooms, whether it's even going into lunch to be available at the high school. That's actually one of my favorite times of day here, you know, just to stand in the cafeteria. You know, so I think I don't know how many students will get to come here for this reason, but I do think like it is a good opportunity to make yourself available to them. They do want to see you. They like to see, support at the plays and the concerts and the athletic events and all of the other things that we offer. They really do appreciate that. So, when that is available, when you do have time, and you can reach out again anytime to me. I'm happy to either ask one of the principals to let you into lunch. They're happy to introduce you, and you can make yourself available that way. But I think those are good opportunities too.
Okay.
Anything else, Max?
And then, so is there also kind of like a way where we could maybe like send all of the 5 of us's contact info, meaning our emails, as well as maybe even like videos of school committee meetings after they're completed? Like, how you can go on YouTube and get our school committee meeting video after the fact? Is that like something that we could send to student emails or even just teacher emails, and then they could, hand them out to students if the students need it or would be interested in reaching out to us or seeing our meetings? Because I don't think we currently do that.
No. Just publicly posted. But is that some, like, it can be like also like included with potentially, not to take the spotlight off of us, but what the community, meetings that are going on, even for the month, for example, like, just here's what's happening if you want to be civically engaged. But definitely the school committee part, yeah, that
Just
needs
so
to
you
be
guys know,
something.
right now, depending on what school, all the newsletters have our school committee information, and some schools, I think Myron J always uploads our video maybe it's not Myron J, if you want to watch it. So some principals are already doing that, and it's always on every school calendar as well.
Yeah.
This
So
also-
I'm just thinking that I'm not sure if every student, maybe the high school we just do, because I'm not really sure that sending emails to middle school students of our school committee meetings, I can just think of the names I'd be called. But I'm just saying that, but I do know that every school, every time we get one of their things, it tells you school committee meeting is this day, and I think the only way we're going to get students is to go to them. I don't
Right.
honestly think that they are going to come to us. I think we need to go to them, and that's my opinion. Again,
I think this also is like where like time stamping these videos could really come into effect, right? Let's be honest. Like, no one is watching a 3-hour YouTube video for the most. Especially if you're 16 years old, it's 3 hours is almost could be 2.5 classes worth of content. So if
Right.
at the
3
minimum, if
episodes?
we brought back that idea of time stamping the distribution of like the YouTube videos of these school committee meetings, at least at that point, if the students in Miss Cornier's class, for example, wanted to watch our discussion, they
Yeah.
could go to 2 hours and 24 minutes and watch for 12 minutes instead of digging through 2 hours and 24 minutes before that spot came up. I think it's like a good idea, but I agree with Jess in terms of we don't want to clogging emails with full YouTube videos.
Especially
Yeah,
for
that's a good idea.
for the policy part, having their input like continuously, like, for the future too, like, is very, very valuable. For us to be able to vote on things, like, I think that encouraging that and making sure that we're present, the fact that they know that we are value their thoughts and their hard work.
And I think once they see change,
Exactly,
right?
is what
That's what
would
drives
keep
you.
them
Right.
engaged for
Correct.
the future years, especially for the students that take Ms. Cornier's class again. It's students talk and they'll say like, oh yeah, like the actual product that you do actually has a solution. Because the worst thing was when I'd be in school and it's like, well, this is pointless. This is just theoretical, or like no one cares to listen to this. you don't put in the time and effort and dedication to anything that way. But making sure that, you know, we continue in doing what we've started so far and kind of creating that trust with the student body already with this, I think will definitely keep them not just engaged with us with just that particular class, but also letting know the teachers know that, like, yeah, we'll show up when asked. And also, you know, value that work enough to also put it into either policy or into action in some capacity that school committee can do. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, ultimately, I do kind of agree that going to the students is definitely going to be the way that we, you know, fix this. But aside from that, would we still be able to at least try the community service hour thing? I'm not saying it's going to work, but I'd rather try it and see rather than, you know, not try it. Because it's something creative, it's different. I don't think a lot of school districts do anything like that, so I would kind of just like to see if it has any effect.
Is there like a list of like community service offerings that the school
Yep.
district and all that, like, is that on paper or is that
I
online?
believe the
the
high
website.
school has it listed
Is
on
that
their
online?
website.
Okay,
I
so,
say
so
website
that's
for
easy enough for us
guidance
to,
counselor.
that's easy enough for us to, one, just get us added on that.
Right.
And then the second part just falls on the administration, would just let them know.
Right.
Let them know that this is you know, the staff in the high school, let them know, like, this is also another option now. But I think having that added to the high school website I don't see that being too difficult to do. Hopefully.
A question on Max, would we put like where they have to stay like for an hour? I think it's a great idea, Jess. We did that when we did playgrounds.
Yeah.
And we actually had, this could be a turning point where you may have, you know, a high school student say, Mark, can you just go there? I can go there for an hour. And that parent may just be looking for a reason to come as well. So
Right.
to say that, I think it's always a great idea when, like you said, it costs $0 and the potential for it to take off could be great, but we can't lose anything.
Right.
Jess, you see when we had kids do our first playground, you know, they might have been 10 and 6 years later they were driving themselves there. Like, I remember you guys doing the first one. And if you don't open that up like that, Max, it's just anything we can open the door for students to get involved. Especially for $0 today, I think it's a no-brainer. And the flip side is we could get a parent that's involved, but I think we should all agree if they, you know, stay an hour or something, so they don't think they gotta stay for the whole meeting,
No.
right? Like you said, this way we may get that parent involved and say, let's grab a quick something to eat, we'll go there for an hour, you can do it, and let's see what it's all about. I think it's a great idea.
Exactly.
I would support that, wholeheartedly. If we decide what would be like an hour, I think that would be something great and see where that goes.
Right, and like I said, it might work, it might not, but it doesn't hurt us to try, so why
Exactly.
not?
Sounds good.
So I would, if we put that in a form of motion,
Do we need a motion, Jen?
That doesn't require a motion.
Okay, no, it's not on, okay.
Alrighty.
So that was putting them.
Max, if you're ready, it's
Oh,
all up
back
to
to
you.
me.
The next one's to you
So,
too.
so yeah, really quick, this one's pretty,
Sorry.
it's much more simple.
I'm just gonna read it.
Okay.
Student and/or staff recognition at school committee meetings. Take it away.
So yeah, this one's a little bit more simple, but it's basically just my idea of it, and you know, everyone else can give their input. But what I was thinking was having a spotlight item or recognition item, and it could be applied for either students or staff. And what I was envisioning is monthly, whether we have 2 meetings a month or one, we could just have an agenda item that basically allows us to recognize any students or staff who are exceeding expectations in any way, and I think that's just a nice way to start off our meetings with a little bit more positivity. And I'm pretty sure that at one point we have done it in the past, because I did see it in the older bylaws before they were updated, so I don't know what everyone else thinks of that idea, but I can't see this taking more than 5 or 10 minutes as like an item at meetings, but I think it would be a great way to you know, show that we recognize and care about the people in our district who are exceeding expectations and doing great things, and it allows us to start our meetings with some positivity.
So just a thought, what if we have at least a start start with, just an idea. Having our current liaisons from the different schools, from the high school and middle schools, be the ones to either provide that recognition of either another student, another staff person from their respective schools. Since I feel like they're the ones that are most informed with, who's really, achieved something that, that month or something like that. So that was just a thought, at least a starting point for that. Are there any other comments?
I mean, my question would be, who is the person that is in charge of identifying the staff or student before every meeting?
I'm imagining that would probably be up to us to determine, or
Based on what? Like, what?
I mean, it could
what are you
be like,
basing
it
this
could
on?
be anything simple. It doesn't have to be like, saving someone's life. It could be, like for example, the 3 students from the CTC programs who, won statewide championships.
Right.
I think those are, excellent things. And the fact that, we don't really kind of recognize them for that at a school committee meeting, I think we could do that, and it would kind of just show some positivity. But
When those come up, right? Like, is that is this something you want to put on every single agenda we have? So now if we have 2 weeks, we're talking 24 meetings a month potentially. If we do 2 a month, so like every 2 weeks, like who's going to be charged with like identifying the multiple students and teachers every 2 weeks?
yeah, definitely not. I just mean like as needed. So it might be, once every few months. It might be twice a month. It could be just completely up to our discretion or based on what there is to recognize. So there wouldn't have to be like a standard for when we would do it. It would just kind of be, as needed.
I think those students mentioned we should have that recognition at our next meeting.
Yeah.
I've heard it mentioned before, and I think it's a great idea, Max.
We can ask them at the next meeting when they're here. Or actually, we can just get in contact with them beforehand, but,
Okay.
like formally.
Or
like,
even we could just
to have
make it, if we
ready for the
don't
next
want to
one.
have it like on the student liaison report, we could make it like a different item, but have the student liaison still like kind of announce
stick
it.
it for
So
that
that kind
one.
of just differentiates, the difference between their report and the like recognition item.
So it can be like, you know how there's a director of like finance report and then name, it can be like the, report, and then liaison name, and then if there's a recognition right under that as a number.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to try it that way, and
Okay.
we can change it however we want, but
No, I like it a lot. We can always use more positivity.
right.
At Black, anybody who's in the room who has something good to say that happened to somebody that week gets to say something. It's something good. So if 1 week it was a bus driver of a student they thought was fabulous, another week it's, Jimmy gave Sandy her candy, something. We do it every meeting, and it is a really good start. But there are meetings where there is nothing, and it's whoever is there. It's share something good.
I mean, it would be wonderful to have this recognition be part of public comment. Folks,
I mean,
if some people are aware of these successes that are taking place, it'd be great to have folks, have that take place during, public. That seems like a great public comment to have.
I mean, Craig had something good today, so I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, it might not have to be so formal. Maybe we just announce it, and somebody who has something great to share that normally comes to the meetings may have something, so that the stuff that we don't like to hear compensates.
Right.
Because there were people here. Maybe Mr. Messier had something great to share, and we just gave him the opportunity, and he left.
Yeah, that's why I think having it more
announce it.
towards the beginning of the meeting would be interesting. And
maybe if
Craig
it's-
can be the first person we recognize.
But
Craig,
maybe
you're
if
never
it's-
gonna live it down. I'm sorry.
My only fear is if it's something so formal, maybe people won't do it. Ben comes to some of our meetings. Maybe if Ben Nascimento had something great to say that day, he'd get up and he'd say it. If we just said, say something great, something great happened today.
So for announcements,
I mean, my dog didn't eat my face today. That's a plus. in my book.
Yeah, and I think another interesting thing would be if we plan on recognizing someone and we can let them know in advance, they could even, come to the meeting in person. I'm not saying we have to give them like a golden trophy or anything, but at least if they come to the meeting in person, they can, kind of see it in person. So there's a lot of interesting things that we could do with it.
I definitely like the idea of the announcements. That doesn't require anything. It's just, the floor is open to whoever wants to make any announcement about.
We have that. Like, announcements is part of the agenda.
Exactly. So,
Right.
yeah, so it's whoever, it's just also just the inviting part is what I'm saying. Like, hey,
I mean, I think the
whoever
way,
wants to make any
from what I'm kind of catching from, what Max is talking about is it being a little more formalized, which my question really just comes down to who just takes charge of it. That's all. It's not about like, it shouldn't happen. It's really about like who would, take responsibility for ensuring it happens.
I'm just gonna say it out loud, and I've whispered it to both of these ladies, and whatever happens, happens. I just don't want the union to come down on us. Because if we're the ones choosing, I don't want it to look like any favoritism or anything, and
Yeah, no,
I'm
we don't
just
have to
saying
be the
it what
ones
I say.
choosing.
Okay, that's how I feel, I don't,
That's- which is why I think the safest option here would be just leave it up to the student for now and see, what they're able to kind of come up with in who they want to recognize with their peers. And then maybe cross-referencing that with, either, the principal or superintendent.
Yeah, I'd be okay
We can kind
with
of figure
that.
out the logistics, but at least from the way that I thought you were saying is that you kind of want that to come naturally from the students in some capacity. But I mean, that's yeah.
I mean, I'm okay with whatever the committee is okay with. If you kind of want to just have it be like item number 2 under like the student liaison report, I'm okay with that too. Anything that we can really do to just kind of get more positivity in at the beginning of our meetings, I'm totally supportive of. So it's whatever the rest of the committee thinks.
Yeah, I like the idea of adding that to the bottom part and, underneath the report of, whoever else they want to recognize. Is there, the logistics of that, Dr. Ferran, would that be something that would have to either come through us as a request, or is that something that you or the principal, you contacting the principal would kind of help with that? Because us adding the 2 liaisons happened so quickly. you made it happen so quickly. I'm just trying to figure out if that would potentially be something that we can repeat again for this additional little portion under their report.
So you're asking me to find someone to recognize
Oh, no.
every meeting, or
no.
I'm not sure what you're asking me for.
How can we, because I know we can't just, contact, the student themselves and ask them for this new request, but isn't this, yeah, exactly, like, is the preference to either ask them on the spot, because I don't know how they feel about being put on the spot, but at least giving the heads up of like, we're looking to have any recognition made, but who can let them know that ahead of time is what I'm saying. I don't want them to.
Emails with the
you know.
principal, that only covers 3 schools, and that's only the middle and the high school, so that's all.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of gonna say
That's all
too, is
we're
it doesn't cover the
recognizing?
elementary schools, and I
Yeah.
kind of want to be able to like
all.
recognize the elementary as well, or pre-Ks, anything, but.
Can we think about this a little more?
Yeah, we could think about it a little more. We can go on to the next item. I just kind of wanted to like put this on everyone's radar and.
That's, the
Right.
logistics of it, yeah, how that breaks down, but I do like that though, yeah.
See, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll add it to the next, because we can do that.
Yeah,
So we'll
just
add it to the next
brainstorm over the
agenda
next few weeks.
for the next meeting. So just have that in mind for discussion for the next meeting, because it will most likely not require an
Can I
actual.
ask a question?
Yep.
I'm not trying to go any deeper there. Is this an area where we could kind of, we talked about putting the public comments until after discussion items earlier in the evening, right?
Right.
So I'm curious, where would it be appropriate to put the suggestion of moving the discussion and action items underneath the consent agenda, and therefore letting public comment stay exactly where it is?
Moving consent agenda is what you're saying?
Consent agenda being the fourth item, moving discussion items and action items to the fifth and sixth item. So essentially, they would take place in the beginning of these meetings.
Yeah. And bumping down
And then just
the
keeping
other
everything right where it
reports.
is. And then just keeping the rest where it is. Or you could put public comments at the very end if you'd like, but
Yeah, I don't see why we couldn't do something like that.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, because it doesn't interfere with any other items, so.
Yeah. Alrighty. Just
I
gonna
mean, I
jot
guess
that
like
down.
unless in the instance like the superintendent's report, Dr. Friend today was very helpful in going through the instructional coaching positions before it becomes an action item. So I think like, in that case, that should be before an action item.
And that's something I'll always discuss with Dr. Ferrand ahead of time, is figuring out what we would need a presentation on, especially if it's like something that Craig Enos is going to present, or if she's going to present on something, or if Ms. Riley's going to present on something. Like, that'll always be a consideration and when preparing the agenda, to make sure that we have the information before the action item. If not, requiring it to removing it to the end if something was unexpected and needed to actually be presented on that was not anticipated ahead of time.
Okay, great.
Right,
So that's
yeah.
something that we can try to work
Yeah.
on next agenda to see how it flows.
Yeah.
I also think maybe we should have a time limit, especially if there's 2 meetings a month,
Yes.
okay?
I lost track of
Part of
that.
my
I really
suggestion
think
on
we should
moving-
try to-
moving this up.
Do that.
Alrighty. Next item, please.
Next item is action items. Consider and vote to approve creation of instructional coaching positions.
Sorry.
I was gonna make a motion.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I'll
I'll second.
entertain a motion.
I will make a motion as long as the budget allows for how many, I know that we've already said it 400 times.
So beforehand then, if we want to do that, that requires, I'm not sure if it requires, but that may require an MOU then.
Okay.
If we want to have a budget.
But he's never gonna let that happen.
Which is fine.
He's never gonna let us get more than what we can afford.
No, I know, I'm just saying, like, if we want like the formal way of adding that on,
Okay.
that would be an MOU, if,
But it just says, it says creation of instructional coaching
No.
positions. It doesn't say how many, so I'm
If-
okay. I make a motion to approve, because it doesn't say how many. You just wished it. Okay.
Can I second?
all that say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Consider vote to approve the East Providence fiscal year 21 audit report. That does not require approval, though, or did that change? Yeah. Okay. So as a formality, is there a motion to approve the audit report?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All that say aye?
Aye.
Aye. And there is item number 6 that we moved down for the RFP for the Oldham project. That is up for discussion. Yes, Mr. Enos.
Yes, so before you is the RFP, as the superintendent has explained. For next school year, we're going to be moving the preschool program at Martin over to Oldham. So in order to accommodate that move, we need to do some work. And we're going to be constructing some walls within the RFP. You can see there is the library space is going to be sort of split in half with a wall that goes up a certain amount of feet, and the same within the gymnasium / cafeteria space. While those walls really won't take that much work, the work that's really going to be taking a lot of work is the fire alarms and all of that work that's within the ceiling that needs to happen. So we want to get this done. So we're asking you just to approve and bless that we can go out to do this work. We will post it, and at the meeting in May, we will bring it back to you for your approval. Thank you.
Before you go, though, any questions for Stanislaus before he sits down? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll open the floor to any questions or comments for the RFP for the Oldham Classroom reconfiguration. Are there any motions from the committee?
Make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Oh, let's say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Are there any announcements? All right. Yes. Wait. You missed public comment.
I'm making this not, this comment not as a member of the public. I'm making this as chair of the Charter Review Commission. This is to announce that we have a Charter Review Commission. We had our second meeting yesterday, and we are trying to solicit input from the public and also from the other elected bodies in the city. I have spoken already with the administration and with the city council. I'm now coming to the school committee and the superintendent. We are taking up different items. We're going section by section through the charter. I know that there isn't too much in the charter concerning the school department and the school committee. It's mostly Title 16, but if you have anything you want us to review, consider, let me know. You're welcome to come to the meetings too and speak on it. If you want to bring it up in advance, we can put it on the agenda, and just, it can be a written communication, whatever you want. But we are welcoming input. We're trying to make this as interactive as possible.
Thank you. Thank you. I will say that no one else got a personal invitation for that, so I'm going to take that as a special treatment for the school committee. Are there any motions to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All that say aye? Aye. Meeting adjourned.